اي واحد اللي بيطلع الصوت فيه. لا هو. لا لا، هذا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Our topic tonight about the Muslim minorities outside Muslim countries, and some of the issues that they have to handle, and the change of the rules, or the change of the verdicts, or because of the change of the place or the traditions and so on and so forth. It's very dangerous issue. It could be used to destroy the religion, or it could be to open for people and to show what the Sharia, how beautiful the Sharia is. There is an expression a lot of people use. Do we have fiqh? Aren't we outside Muslim countries? Today we were in a question session, and a woman asked, if a woman is divorced in this country, can she, because of the change of the place and the place and the time, can take what the civil law allows the divorce to take? The divorced woman in this country, automatically they get they take all the wealth for both couples from the time they get married till they divorce. Half of it will be for the wife and half for the husband. So she's saying, out in the being outside and not having the family that support you and other things, can she accept half of the wealth of her husband according to what the law of this country allow? This is just an example here, and there's a lot of other examples that we could relate to this issue. Because we have our own issues and time, space, and traditions and culture, but with the change of time and place is the change of the verdict or the fatwa. 2004, about 13 years ago, there was a training, the first training for Amja in Sacramento, California. And from those who attended is Wahd Zuhairi, may Allah bless his soul, he passed away. And the topic of that meeting, some of the issues that Muslim families face outside Muslim country. And the first thing is about the fiqh, the understanding of the minorities. And the verdict, of course, for the Muslim minorities, they have their own special status, especially the place and the time, just like it has some of the issues that they have to deal with. The rules that control all the issues. So as far as the time, they are in a strange area. You take an airplane, no one mention Allah around you. The whole airplane might not have anyone who remember Allah or mention Allah or worship Allah except you. Or you'll enter the airport, and you might find one or two people who worship Allah. Allah said Islam started as strange and it will go back to being strange. So, with being away from home, it is more clear in these communities because they are surrounded with a lot of trials, and Allah is the one who protects. May Allah protect us all. Anyway, naturally, because they live outside so-called Muslim countries, whether these are state of Islam or not state of Islam, that's a different issue. But to stay away from where Islam is the general rule, and there is no being away from home worse than being outside the Muslim countries. Of course, living in these communities, it requires a lot of rules that people have to look that you don't find in Islam, like to get the nationality of this country. Is it allowed or not allowed? In your country, you don't ask. You just have you naturally get the nationality of the country that you were born in, and so on and so forth. A lot of issues that come in this country for the minority Muslim, whether it is the marriage or to falsely marry someone to get the green card, all of these issues came by living in here and living in this community. And from the rules that control these issues, of course, there is ways that need to be done. Now, with living in this country with as a minority Muslims in this community, it requires, of course, rules, that special rules that address the special status that Muslim lives in this country. This community do not accept Allah, or do not accept Islam as a religion, or Muhammad as a messenger. So, what is the summary? That the rules, it's could be general. Sometimes it is misused. If it's meant to get the right rules in Islam, that is especially for the minorities, from the rules in the best effort of thinking. And remember the special status these minorities do, and the importance that they have to follow the rules and the laws of the country. They have to, and there are certain things that you should not do. For example, in all your contracts, you find there is a fine for being late. You should not get to that point. Whether you like it or not, these rules are in all contracts, and you cannot find a house or to rent a house or buy a car or to have a phone or electricity, water, or anything. All these contracts that are presented to you, there is a penalty for being late. And without a doubt, it's part of usury, of riba. But this is something you cannot avoid. So you try to avoid it by being on time, of course. And this is what the scholars look at to understand all the issues are surrounding those special issues. But if what meant with the special rules for the special status for the Muslim or the minorities is to twist the rules of Allah Azza wa Jal and to serve special interests instead of the interests of Allah Azza wa Jal, and in particular with the nowadays of the call for renovation in Islam or new in Islam, where somebody is making a fatwa that a woman should lead the prayers with men, or to take off the hijab, or all of these issues that we hear every day that are endless. And when they say if you start giving up, there's no, it's like a sliding road that you can't stop from getting into it. Like if you go on a slide, there is no other way except to go down. Once you go down, you have to keep going down. So you should never give up on any of your principles. Now, when we go to the change of the fatwa or the verdict, depends on the place or time. For those who live outside the Muslim countries, who are minorities in a community, let me ask you a question first. What does it mean to be a minority? What is the minority? Meaning, as all of you know, a group of Muslims that lives with a majority or non-Muslims. They want to keep their identity as Muslims. A group of a certain country or area or region that are different from the majority in their characters. They are nationals, but they have their own status, special status, because of their nationality or religious status. So each group, every human group that lives in any country that are different from the majority in religion or nationality, or then they are minority. To change the fatwa because of the change of time or place, I mentioned to you before that meaning. You find it in the scholar's book, and there is rule that controls it. And a lot of scholars talked about it. At the same time, it could be a very dangerous weapon if it is left for those who don't understand or comprehend what Allah wants in His rules. The first thing we would like to understand, what is the change? The change of fatwa, not the rule. The rule, it's is continuous at all times. The fatwa is the one that change. If it is built on special interest, then with the change of the interest, the change of the fatwa. If it is built on traditions and culture, then with the change of cultures and traditions, then the fatwa will change. If it is built on the condition of people because of a certain time, and their condition change because of time, and their character change, their religious change, then the fatwa will change. It depends on that change. And when we say the corrupted time, the time is not corrupted. It is the people who are corrupted during that era or that time. Their characters, or they change their manners, or their difference, which required a different verdict that deals with this change. So every time there is a new corruptions, there is a new rules that have to deal with this corruption. The fatwa, as we said before, it is a clarification of the rule of Allah. And even in the language, they say the fatwa, the verdict, anyone who clarified uh, on a matter, then he made a fatwa, even though it was not something had to do with religion. In Egypt, they have a special committee in their Congress. They are for fatwa. It's not for legislating or explaining Allah's rules. No, they are trying to clarify to people where the law of the land, the civil law of the land, stands on any issues, and how you implement it according to the constitution of that country. And does it work on this condition or not? This is a special section and or special committee in the country in Egypt, and that's just an example. But this is not for. So the word fatwa is not only for religious. Like in the Quran in Surah Yusuf, when the king asked, that he have a dream, he wanted people to give him fatwa on what he's dreaming about. So it's for nothing religious, or could mean something about a political stand, and does not have to be related to religion. Balqis, she told her people when she received the letter from Sulaiman, she said, "This is from Sulaiman, and it's in the name of Allah, the Merciful and Gracious, that you should not be arrogant on me and come to me surrendering." So she asked them, "What? Give me a fatwa. I'm not gonna do nothing until you are witness." So they told, "We are strong, and it's up to you. Look what you wanted to do. We are following you." From the issues that discuss the time of the change of time, you have to separate the rules that cannot be changed, like alcohol, intoxicants are forbidden in Islam. 10 years from now, it's not going to change. 20 years, 1 million years, it's not going to change. These are principles that cannot be changed. But doesn't matter where, at what time, so it does not change because of the change of the time or the place or the conditions. So we have principles, we have certain rules that cannot be changed, like the obligation of prayers, fasting, Hajj, to be obedient to your parents, and a lot of dealings between people. It says required. They cannot be changed, and also, and the things that are forbidden, like you cannot attack people, you cannot steal from them, you cannot kill anyone, deceiving people, cheating them, betray them. All of these are forbidden. These are principles that cannot be changed. All of these are rules that cannot be changed because of the change of time or place, and it's the only exceptions for it is in the time of emergencies, because Allah said, whomever is forced and he don't want to and he's not gonna go back to it, then he has no sin. So we're talking about the fatwa of people that is based on the conditions. Once their condition is changed, then the fatwa is changed. Like our Aisha saying, the Prophet, if he said, the hadith said, the Prophet said not to stop the woman from entering the masjid. And she said that if the Prophet saw what the woman has innovated in this country, in what they are wearing and what they are doing in the masjid, he will not allow him to go into the masjid. And this is the time of Aisha after the Prophet died. So we're going to take examples from this so we can clarify it a lot easier. But before we enter these examples, we need to stress on the danger of using that expression when it is in the hands who have no understanding of what Allah means with the rules, or don't understand the rules of Allah and Messenger, or the clarification that He alayhi salatu wasalam taught us. So the principles will not be touched. and people cannot change it under the call of renovation because of the change of place and time. And as an example, as the evidence that the fatwa cannot change, the hadith of the Rasul said he forbid his people one time to save any meat from the udhiyah over three days. Like Abdullah ibn Wafid said, the Prophet ﷺ has forbidden us to eat the flesh of the udhiyah after 3 days. You should not eat from that. So Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr says, I mentioned that Amr. She said, yes, he's truthful. He said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, the Prophet ﷺ came, some Bedouin came at the time of Adha, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, you could keep for 3 days and then give whatever is left. So you keep only for 3 days and then you give charity after that. So after years came in, they said, "Oh Prophet of Allah, people are leave the milk and they melt the fat of the udhiyah, so it will be oil, so they could use it as something for the future. So if you forbid us over 3 days, then he said everything else you have to give up. What shall we do?" He said, "Why?" They said, "Because you forbid us to eat the udhiyah after 3 days." So we take the fat, we melt it, we make it oil, and we benefit. He said, "What I forbid you, because of the people who came, because we have Bedouins who came to us, and they are very poor. So the Prophet ﷺ wants to encourage his companions to give charity to them and to be generous to them, because they are guests in Islam, and that's why he said, eat. So eat and give charity as you wish." So that specific verdict that the Prophet ﷺ made to his companions not to keep any meat more than 3 days from the udhiyah, he meant with it that they have to be kind to their guests, to give that extra meat to their guests, those for the tribes who came in from the Bedouins, who were very poor. But after that, so that rule was only for that year, for that specific time, for specific occasion. So after that, he said, eat and save and give charity, and the feeling is very open. So the rule has changed because of the change of the reason. The reason it was forbidden to keep them, save those, because there was a lot of poor who came to Al-Madinah, and he alayhi salatu wasalam wanted to encourage his companions to give charity and to be kind to them and to honor their guests. And this is an example of the change of the fatwa because of the change of the time or the place or the condition. Because the reason of that rule to be good to the guests who came from out of town. And since that one is already not existent and not having a new poor, so the Prophet ﷺ made it very general, where he allowed them to eat, save, and to give charity as they wish. Ameen. Also, what is mentioned, what is proven on Aisha, peace be upon her, that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't you see that your tribe, when they built the Kaaba, they did not, they stopped on part of the pillars of Ibrahim?" He said, so she told him, "Why don't you rebuild it on the foundation of Ibrahim?" He told her, "If your people were not new to Islam, I would have done that. They cannot take it." And that's why when you see in Al Kaaba, there's a space that is out. When Quraysh wanted to build the Kaaba, they did not have enough fund because they don't want to put in the funding for Al Kaaba not to have any money that came from usury or anything that's forbidden. So they could not build it completely according to its foundation. So with whatever they have, that's what they built, and they made a fence. So that place will be. It is known that it's part of Al Kaaba. That if they have enough halal money, they will build the Kaaba according to its foundation. And because that part of Kaaba, you cannot go in the middle of it to have a shortcut. No, because you did not make the whole tawaf. You have to make the tawaf outside the building of Al Kaaba, outside the fence of the Kaaba. If this is the Kaaba and this is the fence, the Hajj of Ismail, when you go, you have to go outside that part. You cannot go in inside so you can take a shortcut. No, with that, you are making tawaf inside the Kaaba, not all Kaaba. So the Prophet ﷺ, he did not wish to rebuild the Kaaba on its foundation of Ibrahim because people are new to Islam. They just left Jahiliyyah, the time of ignorance. So he was fearful that this action might weaken the faith in the heart of the Muslims at that time. So the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to delay this to until he sees that the faith is very strong in the hearts of people. Ameen. Ameen. From the scholars who talk about the change of fatwa is Ibn al-Qayyim. When he's in one of his books, he discussed this issue and he put a title, chapter on the change of fatwa and its variety depends on the time or the place and the traditions and cultures. And this is it's a great chapter that is very beneficial. It happened because of the ignorance and that brought a lot of wrong things to the Sharia. And it made people have more burden than what Allah did not allow to them. When we know that Sharia will not, that comes with the best of interest, cannot be wrong because it's built on the wisdom of what is good for people, and it is all just, it's merciful, all of it, it's all beneficial, and it is wisdom, all of it, because every issue that came for anything that came from justice to injustice is not part of Sharia, even if people say whatever they want, because the Sharia, it is Allah's mercy on His servants and His creations, and His shade in His earth, and it's His wisdom that prove Him and show the truthfulness of the Prophet ﷺ, and it is the guide, the light that the believers see with it. That is the pure cure that has a cure for every sickness and whomever follow it, he is on the straight path. And this is some of the things that he said about Sharia. You could find in that he said the change of fatwa, not the rule. So the fatwa is about specific issue, not, but the principles of Islam is very clear. The fatwa is the statement of the scholar that going to illustrate what need to be done. And the rule of Allah Azza wa Jal has four parts: permissible, recommended, forbidden, and it's not liked. These rules, those four rules, these are the general rules, and these are principles. But in practice, in certain issues, with certain time, this is what you can change the verdict. I mean, from the issues that prove the change of fatwa because of the time is the marriage with the non-Muslims with the people of the book. It's an issue in the book of fiqh, of understanding, and the dispute about it is very wide, and most of people allow it, and those who dispute are very little. Because Surah Al-Ma'idah is the last thing that came in the Quran, and in it Allah said, and the Muhsanat, the ones who not Muhsanat is the one who that in that ayah it allows marrying the people of the book, and a lot of scholars did that according to the Quran and what Allah has allowed, or whenever the scholars they lived outside the Muslim countries, whether it's in fighting or it's in trade or anything like this. First of all, to live, if the rule is not the rule of Allah, it is the rule of the woman that you are marrying. So as the first dispute that between you and her, all the rules of this country will stand as protection to that wife of yours. So you have to be careful with that meaning. The other issue, chastity or being a virgin, it's very seldom you find people. We don't say it's not there, but it is something that is very seldom, because in this country does not there's no value for a woman to stay a virgin. They consider it that this is a disease, and they want to see why is it this woman still a virgin? Why is it she is not practicing sex and she's still a virgin? And they sometimes think that it has to be going to a psychiatrist. Unfortunately, this is something that you find. So it's very seldom to find the virgin. And Allah allowed the marriage to non-Muslim the people of the book, that she'll be a virgin. Third, the future of the children when they live in their family, they look at two different directions: the father who's a Muslim and the Christian mother, and the kids see the difference. And after that, if there is dispute, so the kids, who are they going to stay with, their father or their mother? You can't go to the law, to the court, and say, oh, under Islam, no. They don't want to know what your religion, what your belief is. They will not. They'll tell you whenever these kids grow up, they can decide for themselves. We're not gonna tell them be Muslims or not Muslims. This is what the court will tell you. And when they grow up, they can choose for themselves. And by the time they grow up, a lot of things could go wrong. So all these meanings has to be understood when we talk about the verdict. We don't change the rules of Allah, but we say the marrying of the people of the book, it is allowed with hatred because of what we have discussed about the future of the kids and so on and so forth. And this is a fact on the ground that no one disputes except the person who cannot see. We do not forbid what Allah allowed. What we say is dangerous. And we say, oh, my brothers in Islam, be careful. Don't establish your houses on the edge of a fire. So don't build your house on the edge of the hellfire. And don't gamble with the future of your kids because you want to experiment something. And they are the trust of Allah in your household. And you wish that they will be a good thing for you in this life and the hereafter. A lot of things we could give talking about this subject, but because of the lack of time, we are stopping. And remind you, whatever rules that are built on interest, then if the change of those interests, then the change of the fatwa. And the same thing with the culture and traditions. Even the language itself, if someone said, I will, by Allah, I will not sleep on a bed again. He slept on the floor. Allah said He had made the earth as something that is lowered, the word Allah used, it will be like a bed. Like if somebody said, oh, nothing will cover me ever, because Allah said Allah made the heavens as a ceiling. So if that person slept outside, is he fulfilling his swearing? Of course, these are two different. You have to look at the meaning as clarification, and this is very important to decide the right verdict in Islam. Inshallah, we'll continue, inshallah, Monday.